Southern Pacific Daylight number 4449 is one of the most beautiful and well-known steam locomotives in America. Watching her traverse the scenic Pacific Northwest with a colorful consist of vintage passenger cars is always a sight to behold. 7 Idea and Marcam Productions have teamed up to present a fascinating look at the SP 4449 traveling through the Columbia River Gorge and Deschutes River Canyon. This action-packed program features highlights from steam excursions between Portland and Bend, Oregon from 2006, 2012, and 2017. Plus special trips to Wishram in 2011, celebrating 4449's 70th year. We will begin in Portland and head east through the scenic Columbia River Gorge via BNSF's Fallbridge subdivision. Then turn south on the Oregon trunk line through the rugged Deschutes River Canyon to Bend. We then follow the classic Daylight as it makes its return trip to Portland. It's a 500-mile round trip through some of the most scenic country in the western United States. Join us now as Marcam and 7 Idea Productions present Deschutes Daylight, SP 4449 Portland to Bend. The 4449 steam specials are routed over BNSF trackage between Portland and Bend, Oregon, a distance of around 260 miles. The first 105 miles are over BNSF's Fallbridge subdivision, which begins at Portland's Union Station, milepost 0.0. The line heads north, crossing the Willamette and Columbia Rivers to Vancouver, Washington, turning east through the Columbia River Gorge. Scenic attractions include the Cape Horn Tunnel, North Bonneville, Stevenson, and Hood. At Fallbridge, just west of Wishram at milepost 105.9, the train enters the Oregon Trunk subdivision, crossing the Columbia River again on the Oregon Trunk Drawbridge. The line passes over the Union Pacific's Portland subdivision on the south side of the river and enters the Deschutes River Canyon at Moody. The photographic possibilities in the canyon are endless, and we will cover popular locations such as Oakbrook, Twin Bridges, and Cambrai, just south of Maupin. At Trout Creek, the 4449 puts on a fantastic show as it climbs the grade out of the canyon through Gateway and Paxton, then across the 275-foot high Willow Creek Bridge near Madras, and the 300-foot Crooked River Bridge near Terrebonne. The train then sprints across the high desert country to Bend, milepost 152 on the Oregon Trunk subdivision. The return trip to Portland is made over the same route. However, our coverage gives you a completely different look at the line, with only a few exceptions. We have a lot to show you, so let's get started now. Portland, Oregon has been home to the SP Daylight number 4449 since the Southern Pacific donated it to the city in April of 1958. While the sun was setting on the steam era and SP's mighty GS-class locomotives fell to the scrapper's torch, the 4449 was, in a sense, just beginning life. A life that would bring delight to generations yet unborn. For there is nothing quite like experiencing firsthand a living, breathing steam locomotive. In September of 2006, the 4449 departs Brooklyn Yard for an evening deadhead move to Portland's Union Station in preparation for the Deschutes Steam Special. It's after dark as the 4449 arrives at Union Station. Illuminated by the lights of the city, the daylight will be switched at the north end of the depot and back to its train. A crewman takes the powered switch into hand-throw operation, then lines the locomotive for the proper track. Once this task is completed, he signals the engineer with his lantern that it is safe to make a reverse move. In June of 2017, the 4449 embarked on a round trip to Bend, Oregon and return dubbed Cascades Daylight. In honor of the special occasion, the engine's number boards were changed to read 925, reflecting the official Amtrak train symbol for today's excursion. The 4449 is the only remaining GS4 class engine and was built in May of 1941 by Lima Locomotive Works in Ohio. The streamlined 484 was built for passenger service and given the same daylight paint scheme that it wears today. It was assigned to SP's premier passenger train, the Coast Daylight, running between San Francisco and Los Angeles, and later it pulled passenger trains on the Sunset Route and Golden State Route. Toward the end of its working career with the SP, as passenger trains were dieselized, the 4449 was painted black and silver and its skirts were removed. It found odd jobs such as fast freight and helper service, and was retired in October of 1957 and placed in storage at SP's Bakersfield Roundhouse, along with other GS-class locomotives. It was donated to the city of Portland the following year. It is most famously remembered for pulling the American Freedom Train between 1975 and 1976, painted in red, white, and blue. Engineer Doyle McCormick was instrumental in the locomotive's restoration for the bicentennial run, and today, as president of the Oregon Rail Heritage Foundation, he continues donating time and talent in a tradition of man and machine that have been working together 43 years and counting. With McCormick at the throttle, the SP 4449 departs Union Station, officially kicking off the Cascades Daylight Excursion. The steam special departs Union Station on BNSF's Fallbridge subdivision. The tracks follow a northwest heading along the Willamette River toward Lake Yard, passing Portland's commercial district in this scene from 2006. At Willbridge, the 4449 crosses the Willamette River on a drawbridge as the main line takes a northeast heading for Vancouver, Washington. This scene is from a July 2011 excursion to Wishram, celebrating the Daylight's 70th anniversary. The 2017 Cascades Daylight excursion crosses the Oregon Slough, which is actually part of the Columbia River. Known officially as Bridge 8.8 on the BNSF, it measures 1,524 feet in total length and was completed in 1908. Repositioning ourselves at Vancouver, Washington, the 4449 exits the Columbia River Drawbridge and slowly comes to a stop at the depot to pick up passengers. In September of 2006, the Deschutes Steam Special races out of Cape Horn Tunnel, east of Washougal. A Portland to Wishram special heads through St. Cloud in 2011. The Cascades Daylight enters a North Bonneville Tunnel 1.5 between Skamania and Stevenson. The Wishram Special races through Stevenson as 4449's 80-inch drivers pound the rails at 60 miles per hour. In October of 2012, we catch the train racing through Hood. As the train continues east along the Columbia Gorge, lush forests give way to a more arid landscape. This 2006 scene is at North Dalles. The daylight is nicely silhouetted at Horsethief Lake in October of 2012. The Cascades Daylight meets a westbound coal train at Avery, milepost 103.4 on the Fallbridge sub. Here, the train slows as it prepares to cross the Columbia River back into Oregon. Our vantage point is high above the Oregon Trunk Bridge at Celilo. Here we will leave the Fall Bridge subdivision behind and turn south on the Oregon Trunk subdivision. A permanent speed restriction of 10 miles per hour exists on the bridge, so don't expect a fast run-by here. The train gingerly enters the west leg of the Y, which makes up the north end of the bridge. Spanning 3,245 feet across the river, including the west leg of the Y, the Oregon Trunk Bridge was completed in 1912 as a swing bridge and converted to a vertical lift in 1956. The summer of 2017 was hot and dry, with temperatures near the 100-degree mark. Transitioning to a cooler scene in September of 2006, we get the added show of steam as the special crosses the bridge. After crossing into Oregon, the train makes a 0.6% climb between Celilo and Moody at the mouth of the Deschutes River Canyon. The train eases to a stop at Moody, a 4,399-foot siding. This is a regular service stop for the 4449, and crews waste little time servicing this state-of-the-art technology from the 1940s. While pausing for a moment, we see a westbound UP crossing the Deschutes River west of Biggs. South of Moody, we are now along the scenic Deschutes River as the 4449 approaches Oakbrook. The train slows as it nears Oakbrook. Since it is making good time and freight traffic is light this afternoon, the crew have been granted permission from the BNSF Oregon Trunk Sub-Dispatcher to do a photo run-by at this location, much to the delight of the passengers. Repositioning ourselves around the bend, we watch and listen to the great show of steam in the canyon. The Deschutes River Canyon is full of photographic opportunities. One of the highlights is at Tunnel 2, where the railroad straightens out a tight curve in the river by crossing it twice and burrowing through the canyon walls. It is known as Twin Bridges. The train exits the south bore of Tunnel 2 and crosses the river again. Continuing south, the 2017 Cascades Daylight heads toward Maupin, above the west bank of the Deschutes River. The railroad leaves the Deschutes River behind as it follows Trout Creek for a few miles on a grade that reaches 1.49%. The daylight puts on a fantastic show as it climbs through this lonely part of Central Oregon. The train continues its climb toward the Trout Creek Viaduct. Generating up to 5,500 horsepower, the 4449 is an awesome spectacle of sight and sound as it lugs its train up the grade. At Paxton, the sheer canyon walls are replaced with irrigated farmland as the railroad reaches a maximum grade of 1.5%. A small herd of cows charge through the hayfield near the tracks, excited by the funny-sounding train. Continuing south, the small community of Madras was a prime location for catching the 2017 eclipse, and tens of thousands flocked to the Central Oregon community to see this unique event. Just west of town is a great location to watch another event, the 2017 Cascades Daylight. The 1,050-foot Willow Creek Bridge has always been a popular spot for rail fans. Continuing south, the Crooked River Gorge is a 300-foot chasm breached by a single-span arch bridge. The steam special races toward Bend. The formations near Smith Rock State Park make an excellent backdrop as the train approaches Terrebonne. The 4449 gallops through Terrebonne in the late afternoon in June of 2017. Arriving in Bend, the 4449 takes the siding and heads toward the depot where passengers will detrain. The tracks are adjacent to Highway 97, and the long shadows of passing cars drift over the scene in the evening light. Normally, the train is wide north of here at Prineville Junction. However, due to some delays, the decision was made to bring the special in and Wyatt the following day. The next morning finds the 4449 spotted on the Y track at Bend, where it spent the night. Today, the steam special will make its return trip to Portland as Amtrak train number 955. The fireman blows down the boiler, making for a great show of steam. This process removes sediment which collects in the boiler. With everything ready to go, the 4449 slowly heads for the main. Out on the main, the 4449 heads toward the north end of the yard, where it will be lined into the siding and coupled to its train. Within a few minutes, the daylight heads north, pulling the train backwards to the Y track at Prineville Junction. The Amtrak unit number 93 is still coupled to the other end, providing head-end power for the cars. North of Redmond, the daylight special approaches Prineville Junction. Another crowd is on hand to watch as the train is wide for the northbound trip. Young and old alike enjoy this rare opportunity to see the steam special and its colorful consist of vintage passenger cars harkening back to the golden age of railroading. Since this is not an Amtrak route, even the P-42 Genesis unit is a real treat. With the 4449 cut off, AMTK 93 pulls the train onto the Y track owned by the City of Prineville Railway. The branch line serves local industry and interchanges here with the BNSF several times a week. Back on the move, the Deschutes Steam Special heads north in September of 2006. The cool October sun illuminates the train as it passes fields between Terrebonne and Madras in 2012. Here is the same location in June of 2017. The Deschutes Steam Special is stopped on the main at the north switch of Round Butte, around 5 miles south of Madras. The switch is currently lined for the siding and must be thrown for the main. BNSF's Oregon Trunk Subdivision is controlled by automatic block signals with movement governed by track warrant control. Powered switches are still a thing of the future on this line that sees around 3 trains each direction in a 24-hour period. With the switch lined and locked main to main, the 4449 resumes its northward journey, splitting the classic target signals with the snow-covered Three Sisters in the background. Near Madras, the train is seen again from the other side of Willow Creek Bridge as it performs a photo run-by. North of Madras, the train passes an irrigation canal with Mount Jefferson as a backdrop. Approaching Paxton, the train begins its 1.5% descent into the Deschutes River Canyon. On the point of the 2017 Cascades Daylight, the 4449 eases downgrade toward the small community of Gateway. The Steam Special continues its descent above Trout Creek. South of Maupin near Cambrai, the train makes good time along the west bank of the Deschutes River. Near the same location, we pace the train from the former UP Deschutes Railroad grade on the far side of the river. The summer of 2017 was hot and dry. North of Maupin, a wildfire burned several acres along the west side of the river to the canyon rim. A fire crew remains on scene, mopping up hot spots on a day that saw the temperature rise to 106 degrees. They no doubt envied the rafters who took advantage of this warm weather and enjoyed a refreshing ride downstream. A 10 mph slow order was in effect through the burned area, and the 4449 is seen carefully crossing the White River Bridge. In a scene from October of 2012, the train is dwarfed by giant basalt cliffs as it follows the river north of Shears Bridge. Our photographer recorded 105 degrees in the canyon as the special passed Oakbrook in the summer of 2017. Just around the curve, the 4449 makes some nice stack talk in September of 2006. Back in the Columbia River Gorge, an eastbound Union Pacific races toward the mouth of the Deschutes River Canyon on UP's Portland subdivision. Just above the train, the 4449 appears out of Tunnel 1 on the Oregon trunk line, which parallels the UP to Celilo. Once again crossing the Columbia River into the state of Washington, the SP 4449 has permission from the BNSF Fallbridge Sub-Dispatcher to enter CTC limits and proceed west. The Columbia River Gorge stretches for over 80 miles, providing a water-level route through the Cascade Mountains. River barge traffic competes with a highway, an interstate, and 2 railroads, serving the Pacific Northwest. James J. Hill's Spokane, Portland, and Seattle line was built along the Washington side of the river between 1906 and 1908. The SP&S became part of the Burlington Northern in 1970 and BNSF in 1995. In the distance, the SP 4449 West heads our direction over the old SP&S line after being held at Avery. The special exits Tunnel 11 just east of Lyle. A riverboat serves as a distraction while waiting above tunnels 9 and 8, just west of Lyle. Fall colors adorn the west end of Tunnel 5, also known as the Owl Rock Tunnel, east of Cooks. Scrambling to a vantage point high above Drano Tunnel 2, our effort is rewarded as a steam special passes through the 122-foot bore in perfect evening light. West of Cooks, the Wishram to Portland Special rounds the base of Wind Mountain before arriving at Home Valley. After the train passes, we see an excursion of a different kind. Sternwheelers are often spotted on the river, taking sightseers along the scenic Columbia Gorge. The American Empress is seen docked at Stevenson, just off the mainline. With engineer Doyle McCormick at the throttle, the SP 4449 heads west. West of North Bonneville Tunnel 1.5, the train crosses Hamilton Creek. Dusk settles in as the 4449 makes its way toward the Cape Horn Tunnel with Beacon Rock in the background. In July of 2011, the 4449 is seen passing the siding of Washougal near milepost 28.9. At Vancouver, the Deschutes Steam Special slowly departs the depot after allowing some passengers to detrain. It is only 10 miles further to the final stop at Portland's Union Station. As the train enters the Columbia River Drawbridge, it leaves the state of Washington behind. The Daylight crosses the same bridge in 2017. Returning to where it all began, the 2017 Cascades Daylight slowly makes its way to Union Station at 9:25 p.m., wrapping up a 516-mile round trip to Bend and return. The remaining passengers will detrain, and 4449 will be uncoupled from the Amtrak unit and returned to its home on the other side of the Willamette River. Returning again to 2006, the Big 484 departs Union Station for the former SP Brooklyn Yard Roundhouse, a few miles away, now owned by Union Pacific. The 4449 crosses the Willamette River via the Steel Bridge just southeast of Union Station. Its lower deck carries the railroad and pedestrian traffic, while the upper deck handles light rail and automobile traffic. Opened in 1912, it is the only double-deck independent lift bridge in the world. Between 1981 and 2012, the 4449 resided here at Brooklyn Roundhouse, in the middle of a busy intermodal yard, along with several other historic steam and diesel locomotives. In a final scene from the 2006 Deschutes Steam Run, the Daylight heads for the turntable in the gathering darkness. After dropping the auxiliary tender, the 4449 takes a ride on the turntable and heads for her stall, next to another giant 484, the SP&S 700. After another memorable run along the beautiful Columbia and Deschutes rivers, the only remaining GS4 locomotive in the world can rest from her duties, confident that she is in good hands. Today, the 4449 is on display in between excursions at the Oregon Rail Heritage Center in southeast Portland. The beautiful facility is open to the public, giving you an opportunity to get up close and personal with the famous Daylight, as well as its stablemates, such as Doyle McCormick's Alco PA, painted in nickel plate colors. Spokane, Portland, and Seattle number 700, which is currently undergoing boiler maintenance. And the Oregon Railway and Navigation Company number 197, among others. Thanks to the Oregon Rail Heritage Foundation, these classic locomotives have a permanent home where they can be cared for and enjoyed by generations to come. We hope you've enjoyed this amazing collection of the 4449's excursions through the Columbia Gorge and Deschutes River Canyon. And we can't wait to see this grand lady of the high iron polishing the rails again. Until next time, thanks for watching.